The last time you were here, I asked you a few questions on the budget. So the first one is, what is our federal deficit now, our federal debt now?
Federal debt is in the 30s of trillions.
Okay. And how about what was our deficit last year, and what do you project the deficit to be this year?
I want to make sure I get that right, Senator Scott. I don't have the number at my fingertips.
Okay. And do you know what our revenues were last fiscal year?
Clearly not enough that we didn't have a deficit, but again, I'll get those numbers to the committee.
Okay. Now, the deficit last year was $2.8 billion. And the number, our collections this last year was $4 trillion. Do you know what our expenses were last year?
Whatever the delta of those two numbers are.
Okay. How about our interest expense on our federal debt?
I know it's still at one of the lowest rates in decades. We still pay very little on our debt, given the interest rates have remained low for the last 3 decades.
Yeah, we paid $413 billion last year, which is 7% higher than 2020. Do you know what the duration of our federal debt is?
I do not, sir.
Okay. And do you know off the top of your head the amount of unspent COVID money is?
We talked about the state and local dollars being around $300 billion, but 97% of the pre-ARP COVID funds remain obligated, and most of the direct COVID response dollars in ARP are obligated or spoken for.
Do you stay up with what the inflation rate is, the producer price index increases have been?
I do.
And what are they?
7%.
For which
recently?
One? For what? CPI?
For CPI.
Okay. So, Ms. Coloretti, can you give us those? What's our federal debt now?
I believe we said in the 30s of trillions of dollars.
Okay. And what do you think our deficit's going to be this year?
I think you said our deficit last year, and I'm guessing here, but $4 trillion. Yeah.
And the how much? So if you think our debt's in the 30s, how much debt can either for both of you? What can we have? Is there a cap? What's the amount that we can that you think is sustainable?
Senator, there are many ways to look at debt, many markers. One is, and what we have put forward as a theory of the case in the budget we submitted was, what is the cost of carrying debt? And we remain...
Let's assume it's where it is now. What would be the maximum debt we should have?
Our theory is it really depends on if debt becomes so costly to carry that we can't do other spending that we should be doing, and the interest rates remain very low at historic rates. Yep. So it has not crowded out other investments.
So what's the over the last 50 years? Do you know what the average interest rate for our 10-year Treasury is?
I don't.
So what if I said it's more? Let's say it's over 5%, and we have you said over $30 trillion of the debt. Mm-hmm. So that would be $1.5 trillion of the interest a year. Would that be unsustainable?
We don't think we're in an unsustainable situation. Again, it goes to the real cost of carrying debt, and our interest payments on the debt remain low and has not crowded out other investments we need to make in this country.
But you're not sure what our duration is. So if interest rates move, and they've moved up this year, as you know, they've moved up since the first of the year. So if the interest rates continue to move back to, let's say, the 50-year average, would that be sustainable then?
Senator Scott, of course, we have to relook at all of our assumptions if that historic nature of the cost of debt changes, but it has not in 30 years in any measurable form. So,
all right, I'll just say I'm surprised that you've been in the job for, I guess, almost a year, that these numbers are pretty significant. I mean, these numbers are numbers that it seems like you ought to know, because you ought to know the exact debt. You ought to know what we're doing in what we should do in collections and what our expenses are, because if you're a CFO of a company, that's what the expectations are, and that's how I think of this job. So, I mean, I think we ought to start looking at reality here. $30 trillion plus of debt, deficits that we can't afford, it's going to be very difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Scott.